Hey everybody, it's me Rex the Dog, and I want to talk a little bit about Year 2 of Street Fighter 6. Because I think that the characters that we're getting and what they're planning to do is kind of like a big deal. Okay, so I'm just going to play this, trailer in the background. I'm going to talk a little bit over it. So, here we're seeing Terry come in, and something that I think is really, really important about this is what we're seeing here is not exactly a Street Fighter art style. It's not even a really that much of like a King of Fighters art style. I feel that what we're seeing here really is a sort of like Capcom versus SNK art style. And then here we see Mai come in there as well. I think we are on the verge, well, let's let the rest of it play out, of potentially getting some new Capcom versus SNK stuff down the line. I think it's coming. Now, I don't think it's something that's in active production right now, but I think the conversations and stuff like that will be happening. Right? Capcom and SNK sort of ended their farm partnership on sort of like sour grapes, but over the past few years, it really seems like things are recovering, and it really seems like things are getting into a much healthier place. Now, first things first is, this was 2 or 3 years ago now, we got the SNK versus Capcom Match of Millennium, which was the Neo Geo pocket game, and it was the first one actually, in the SNK versus or Capcom versus series after the card fighting game they did. We had that released on Nintendo Switch. So that might not seem like a big deal, but like a handshake would have had to happen there. Some sort of deal would have had to been made between SNK and Capcom from like a licensing perspective. Like, hey, let's get into business together again, and let's just like re-release this thing. We've been getting the Capcom versus SNK art books, and the fact that this is the first time that Street Fighter has ever done a in-universe crossover. Like, we've had sort of like, rival school characters and characters from like different Capcom, Final Fight, yeah? Final Fight, rival schools. We've had like, within the Street Fighter series itself, characters crossing over, but we've never like, the fact that like half of the next, Fighters Pass is in Year 2 is devoted to SNK, and it's not even like a crossover with the new SNK game because Mai isn't in that, right? This is like just a crossover with, hey, we're doing a crossover with SNK. Really wild. Like, first time this has really ever happened. I think we'll probably see SNK do the same, and I think we'll see a Street Fighter character pop up over there, and then in the future, maybe we're going to be... I say maybe. I'm really quite confident it's the direction we're going in. We'll get a new Capcom versus SNK game. Or SNK versus Capcom. I don't know who will develop it. I think potentially probably the other way around, because Capcom kind of have their plate full. So I think a new SNK versus Capcom game would be really cool, and it would definitely kind of redeem SNK in a way. It would kind of be a bit of redemption for SNK versus Capcom SVC Chaos, which was the last, game that we got. We got that back in 2003, and that game was a mess. I mean, it has like a bunch of ideas in it which you can see are kind of fun, and a bunch of systems that you could see could be worthwhile, but there's so many systems piled on top of systems. It was also being developed as SNK was, being shut down / bought out, so a really sort of tumultuous time for that studio. So it's understandable the game's in a state it is, but it is kind of, bitter that that's the last sort of entry we got outside of, I guess, SVC Card Fighters DS a few years later. But this stuff's got me really optimistic. This stuff's got me really hyped. When I was watching the Summer's Game Fest, my mind was kind of processing, and I wasn't like, and I was also really wanting to sleep. But the more I've kind of dwelled on this, the more I've thought like, whoa, this is kind of wild. And I think we're on a pathway for seeing more Capcom versus SNK, SNK versus Capcom sort of stuff. You know, this trajectory we seem to be on of just like we had the art books, we had the Match of the Millennium re-release on the Switch and the PC, and it's like this stuff needed handshakes, you know, to happen. This stuff needed deals. This stuff needed communication between the two companies. We've got 2 whole characters. They're devoting half of year 2 to SNK. That's a level of investment. That's wild. I think the art style chosen for this trailer is intentional. I think the art style chosen for this trailer is intentional. I think we're going to see that sort of being matched again in the new SNK game. And then I think so if we're talking art books, Switch remaster, Street Fighter 6 year 2, I think we're going to get some stuff from SNK. And then I think we're going to move into a collection. I think it makes sense. You know, Capcom does like putting out these fighting game collections for Street Fighter, or, you know, they've done other beat 'em up and fighting game collections. I think we stand to see a SVC collection. You know, get Match of the Millennium, get Millennium Fight, get Mark of the Millennium, you know, even get SVC Chaos. Like, get those games out in a collection from an awareness and a collector standpoint and a buzz standpoint. I think that'll get people really hyped. And then we move into a fully blown new SNK versus Capcom game. And that could be wild, man. That could be wild. And for me, that'd be something that would redeem the way this series has been left on with SVC Chaos. And I think it will also redeem, you know, where Capcom left themselves in terms of crossover fighters. Because during that sort of like Crapcom era, before they rebooted themselves with the RE engine and Resident Evil 7 and all that sort of thing, what do we got? We got Street Fighter Cross Tekken, again, it's a mess, and MVCI, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which again, such a downgrade from UMVC3. So I'm kind of getting low-key hyped. I'm excited. You know, I'm excited for year 2 of Street Fighter 6. I'm excited to see what SNK pump out with that new game. The idea of a collection, so I can just start playing some like Mark of the Millennium and stuff like that on my and I can play some Capcom vs SNK 2 on my PS5. That gets me really hyped. And hopefully, whatever direction they do go in this, they do go Capcom. Right? And it's not essentially just like Street Fighter versus SNK. I hope that they do go Capcom and be pulling, you know, other Capcom characters from their, you know, other fighting games and other franchises, because you got all this wealth of characters there. That'd be so hype, and it would just bring more eyes onto it as well, because people would be like, oh, whoa, you know, Jill Valentine, or oh, whoa, like, you know, we've got some like Monster Hunter representation, or whatever the hell. Exoprimal. I don't know, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit. I'm hyped. I'm also hyped for M. Bison coming back. I like the homeless representation in Street Fighter 6 between Ken, Akuma, and M. Bison. I think that's totally important and totally valid.